Hi there, and welcome to the HDFS Career Podcast. My name is Dr. Lori Bullock, and I'm an assistant professor at MSU in the Department of Human Development and Family Studies. I teach several courses in the department, and one of them is HDFS 270, which is a course that introduces students to our major and to the field of family science. Quite often, students who are new to our major are not sure of the kinds of career options they have with a degree in human development and family studies. Some students know exactly what they want to do after graduation, and some students aren't sure, and they can often feel sometimes overwhelmed. There are also students who are in this major but plan to pursue careers in healthcare after graduation. These are students who want to be physicians or physician's assistants or nurses or child life specialists or occupational therapists and so on, many of the healthcare fields. The purpose of this podcast is to bring on professionals from many areas that relate to HDFS. Each episode, I invite professionals from the community who have an HDFS background or a background that is similar to HDFS. I'm so excited to have you here today, and I hope the information in this episode will be helpful to you as you consider your career options. I hope you enjoy today's episode. Hello, HDFS students and fellow emerging professionals. I'm so excited for you to meet today's guest on the podcast. Her name is Dr. Sara Dunkel-Jackson, and she is a researcher and project director for 2 labs in HDFS in our department. The first lab is called the RADD Lab. It stands for Research in Autism and Developmental Disabilities. And the second lab is called the ELLI Lab, and that stands for Early Language and Literacy Investigations. So a little bit about Sara. She, besides her roles in those 2 research labs, she also teaches human development and courses and special education courses at MSU. She earned her PhD and Master of Science in Behavioral Analysis and Therapy from Southern Illinois University. She earned her bachelor degree in psychology from Grand Valley. And her research focuses on many areas that might be of interest to you: behavior assessment, behavioral interventions, social emotional regulation, training and development, verbal behavior and communication, and youth sports. She has a lot of experience in the field and has worked with many types of clients and professionals. In her 20 years, Dr. Dunkel-Jackson has supported individuals with disabilities as a paraprofessional, as a lead therapist, as a behavior analyst, associate clinical director, chief clinical director, and a consultant for many human service agencies, schools, and secure treatment centers across Michigan, Illinois, and Ontario. She has lots of experience and just a wealth of knowledge to bring to you today. Dr. Dunkel-Jackson, thank you so much for joining the podcast today to share your career experiences. I'm excited to have you here and for my students to learn from you and learn what you do.
Thanks so much. I'm happy to share what I can and help others kind of figure out their path too.
Great. So we'll get started with some questions then. Can you tell us a little bit about you and explain a little bit about what is a behavioral analyst, and what your current position is?
Yeah. So by trade, I am a board certified behavior analyst at the doctoral level, and I'm a licensed behavior analyst here in Michigan. So when I worked more in that BCBA role or clinical director role overseeing BCBAs, I would do a lot of assessments and interventions, typically with children and or adults with developmental disabilities, traumatic brain injuries, those kinds of things, where we were supporting their daily living skills, their communication skills, and just helping them be included in their environments. Uh, I worked a lot with schools. I was originally going to be a special ed teacher, and so I think that's where my heart kind of is, but I really wanted that BCBA level of expertise too, and I think that really helped me in that role, supporting families and schools and children. Um, we do a lot of assessments. So ABA professionals collect data. They do observations. They interview family members or the clients themselves. We interview other professionals that are working with them to try to gather information about what's going to help this person in their daily life. And then we create function-based intervention. So we figure out why certain things are going on, then we figure out an intervention to address that why. And that's where that functional behavior assessment comes in, leads us to a really good intervention that just matches the reason those behaviors are happening. And we do a lot of staff training or parent training in that role as well, because it's great that we can work directly with that person, but if their family or their teachers or their support professionals can't do that in the rest of their life, we're kind of doing them a disservice. So we really want to make sure that not only are we good interventionists with the people that really need that support, but all the people around them also, they need to be trained on how to support too.
I was wondering about that, the connection with the schools and then with parents too. That's awesome. So more kind of a wraparound care in a way, but focused on the behavioral aspect.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
And we see behavior as, challenging behaviors like aggression and self-injury and things like that. But we also see communication as a behavior and daily living skills as behaviors to teach. Um, Even though there's some that have this like deficit model, we see them as just opportunities to increase those skills.
That's awesome. I like that. More of a strength-based
Yep. Yep.
perspective. Love
Yep.
that. Great. So you've had many roles, as I mentioned when I read your bio. Can you talk a little bit about you wearing your behavior analyst hat? What might a typical day look like for somebody in that type of a role?
Yeah. So a typical behavior analyst, even though I don't get to do much of this anymore, but a typical BA would probably be working in a clinic or a school. Clinics are often, they kind of look like learning centers, almost like schools, especially if you're working with children with autism or developmental disabilities. And you would be supervising some RBTs. So those are registered behavior technicians, and they work directly with the children to support their daily living skills and communication skills and pre-academic kind of school readiness skills. Because ideally, you're moving children from a kind of restrictive environment in a clinic, and you're moving them back into school. You're helping them develop those readiness skills. And that would be if you're working in kind of early intervention, early intensive behavioral intervention. You would be supervising watching sessions, making changes to programs, making new programs that target new skills. If the children are mastering and doing great, you move on to new skills. Things like every 6 months, you do a new larger assessment to make sure you're monitoring that progress across time. You're doing lots of report writing. And if you work in the healthcare side, you're going to be doing lots of billing kinds of sides too, but hopefully work at a clinic and folks can help you with that piece. If you're working in a school, you're probably attending IEP meetings and supporting children who have an individualized education plan, and specifically those who may be engaging in some challenging behaviors in the classroom and need a little extra support kind of from that behavioral side. There's lots of assessments being done, interviews being done with family members and staff too. So getting really comfortable having conversations about some kind of not comfortable topics is important to do. And then oftentimes you just get to play with kids too. That's a really great one where you just get to hang out and see the amazing skills that you have been teaching, just see what they look like in that applied setting.
That's awesome. I bet that's really rewarding to be able to do that with your clients.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
kind of miss it. In my current role, I don't get to do a ton of that, but when I get to go out to like preschools and things and work directly with the children and kind of supervise my research assistants, it's really fun to see that.
Yeah, that's great. So what I was hearing uh, in your description of a typical day is maybe there's not always really a typical day. I'm sure it's
Yep.
different every day. Just
That
kind of,
variety is good for me. I don't think I could do a 9 to 5 same thing every day.
yeah.
There are places that have like 9 to 5 hours, but we go when the clients need us. For example, when I worked adult, I was a behavior analyst for adults. We would have to go after their workday, and so oftentimes they would be having difficulties with bedtime or meal prep, and that's when you go because that's when they need the support.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Great. So looking to your current role as a researcher and project director, what might a typical day look like for you
Sure.
now?
So I've been really lucky to work with Dr. Sara Douglas and Dr. Ryan Bowles on their U.S. Department of Ed grants. We do a lot of work with children with disabilities and their paraprofessionals and teachers, and then also with teachers who are working in preschools, supporting writing for young children. So my typical day kind of ebbs and flows with the time of year. So summer, I'm doing a lot of writing of manuscripts and looking at getting all the references done and writing up methods and things. So that was our summer, and preparing different procedures and protocols that we're going to need when school starts. So then school starts and we're doing a lot of training of our research assistants. So I get to use my BA skills there because I get to use like behavioral skills training and how to teach this new skill, but to a research assistant. So we have to teach them to conduct assessments, teach them to collect data, how to enter data, all those things. We get to talk about research ethics and professionalism. So we have to teach all of these types of skills to the RAs. Then it's lots of scheduling with teachers and recruitment and trying to, talk to teachers and administrators about the value of these research projects and getting them on board. And then it's just kind of monitoring how the data collection is going. So checking in with research assistants, occasionally going out if they need extra support. I've been pretty lucky this year. I got to move some of my really good veteran RAs up to lead positions. So they get to start taking on some of those leadership and training responsibilities. So it's neat to see that kind of train the trainer model kind of going on.
That's awesome. Great experience for your research assistants too. I mean, just some
Yeah.
real hands-on live, not only research experience, but the BA experiences too. So I don't know
Yeah.
if I said that right,
Yeah.
BCBA or BA.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're not certified. But it sounds like it would get them on the road towards, if they wanted to pursue that further.
Yeah, so we have like psych students who are interested in organizational, like IO psych. And in behavior analysis, we have organizational behavior management. And so you can go the route of kind of clinician practitioner with child, but you can also look at it kind of a big picture, leadership administration route, and you're still using the same behavioral principles of reinforcement and prompting and all of those things that you would do with anybody learning any skill.
Yeah, seems like skills that you definitely take with you kind of almost in every setting, I would imagine, in
Yep.
some way, in
Yep.
some way. Right. That's awesome. Really great information to hear for me to learn, but also our students. So that's awesome to hear. So can I ask, what made you choose this career path that you follow? Did you always know you wanted to be a behavioral analyst and then, so on from there? How did that path work?
Sure. Well, in high school, I was planning to be an architect because I really liked building and designing homes and things like that in schools. I kind of liked doing that. But I took a psych course in high school, and we took a field trip to a school for children with disabilities. And my life changed forever. I fell in love with it. I volunteered over the summer, and I just knew that's what I wanted to do. So my senior year, I switched all of my, college applications to something that had special education involved. Because that's what I knew that worked with people with disabilities was special education. So I went to Grand Valley because they had a neat combined psych special ed program, um, which was really great. I'm really glad that I chose academics over sports because I had a opportunity to play softball at college, but Grand Valley had a better special ed program. So I chose that, and it worked because I played lacrosse at Grand Valley and got to learn a new sport. So that was fun. But yeah, I went there. I took courses, and they were okay. But then I took an ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis course that it was an internship working in classrooms for kids with autism. And then I learned what behavior analysis was. And I said, nope, this is what I want. So it kind of focused in on, I know I want to support children with really complex needs. And I just didn't feel that some of the other courses were preparing me to do that. So I talked to my advisor, and she was awesome, suggested I consider graduate school. And I said, okay, what's that? Because I'm the first person in my family to go to college. So I had no idea what grad school was, or a GRE, or that I had to do more applications and more interviews. But I was lucky to have an advisor and an employer. So I worked with a child with autism, and their family was amazing. They knew lots about grad school and things like that. And so I had some really good supports and guides for me. And yeah, decided to look into grad school and got into several. I decided New York City was a little too big for this rural girl. So Southern Illinois was a great option. They had lots of applied work there, which I knew I wanted to not just take classes. I wanted to do something working. And they had graduate assistantships, which I learned pay for my tuition. So
Yeah.
that was really lovely to have that opportunity. And it was still close enough to home here in Michigan. So yeah, and that was great to have those opportunities there.
That's awesome. So it sounds like just a series of events, and like you mentioned, it's like you took a right turn from your high school interest to special ed, and then kind of more narrow focused, and
Yeah,
and along the way, some opportunities opened up and connections you made
yep,
really helped make a difference.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
same with like how we made it, because we worked in Canada. So we I finished my master's degree, applied to PhD programs, but most of my credits would transfer to the SIU PhD program. So I didn't go to Michigan State, but I I got in. Um, Plus my hubby to be was there as well. We finished all our coursework, and we headed to Ontario because our advisor knew somebody who needed PhD level behavior analysts. So yep, we got to work in Ontario, Canada for several years.
That's awesome. Awesome. So doing research there and working in the behavioral analysis and all of that kind of stuff.
Yep, that's right.
Awesome. Awesome. And then so what brought you to Michigan State?
Well, we lived in Canada for several years, had 2 free babies there, and I finished my dissertation. It was awesome to work with some really talented colleagues there to build capacity with ABA, because there were a handful of folks, but for a time we were one of just a few BCBAs living in Canada. So it was great to see that boom. I got to supervise lots of students while we were there working for the Children's Mental Health Agency there. Then I taught, I was the program director for one of the colleges there for a little bit, and then it was time to come home, and kids were getting older, nice to be near to family, and yeah, it was a good move. And Michigan State had a cool opportunity to work in the RADD Lab, and I took that and just kept looking at opportunities.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we talked quite a bit about connections, because you along the way made connections with different people and networking. So can you talk a little bit more about the importance of networking and building connections in the field? Like, are there specific organizations or professionals that you connect with, and how do you network? Things like that.
Yeah. I think some of the options are like conferences. So when I was learning about the field, I learned there was this thing called the Association for Behavior Analysis International, ABAI, and they had a conference every year, and they had an expo and like poster sessions. The expo had all the different graduate programs that were in ABA. So it just so happened to be in Chicago, and my employer used to live in Chicago. She's like, "You're coming." And I said, "Okay." So we got to go down and see the expo, and I met a lot of people. It was a little nerve-wracking, but I knew that they wanted to give me the information because they were looking to recruit students for their program. So it was neat to learn about the different programs and meet some of the students or meet some of the professors. So that was a really good option to, if you know your field of study, look for the professional organization. And that was one of them. When I got into my master's program, I also was the student rep for ABAI. So I got to sit on the executive board for 3 years, which was phenomenal to see how, not just how behavior analysis runs, but how the field and its kind of professional side has to run. So that was really interesting just to get involved in that way.
Really good knowledge base too. Then you kind of learn the ins and outs, and from an organizational perspective.
Yes. And
Yeah.
to sit at a table with people you've read their articles of was kind of interesting. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sometimes almost like meeting a celebrity.
it sure was.
You know, that just kind of shows the geek in us, right?
I know. Yep. A proud nerd. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
yeah, different local conferences too can be an option for folks. But especially if you become like a research assistant on somebody's project and they're going to a conference and it's close enough by, there are student registration rates. So I always took advantage of those, and you get to meet people and different researchers and collaborators. So conferences are a good option.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So thinking about for recommendations for our students who might be interested, are there Michigan-based organizations or some that are close to
Yeah.
here?
Yeah, so ABAI actually is out of Kalamazoo, but the conferences, they have an international one and a national one every year, and international is every 2 years. But Chicago is often an option, and Chicago is a great train ride away. Then they have state organizations too. So we have BAM, Behavior Analysis of Michigan. And then there's an autism specific one, and that's really great. That's the Michigan Autism Conference, and they run that, and it's very much for practitioners and families. There is still research, of course, but it's a little more tailored to folks who work directly with folks with autism.
Yeah, working in the field. So sounds like lots of opportunities to network for students. And so, networking is so important for making future connections. You never know when
Hmm.
you might learn about a job opportunity or a grad school
Yeah,
opportunity. So,
exactly.
yeah, really good for our students to know. Um, all right, my next question. This is always a good one. So, knowing what you know now, what do you wish you had known in college and early in your career?
Probably that it's okay, and even more likely like a great thing, that you kind of change your course of study that you thought you were going to do. It's okay to change, because I think you start to refine what you do and what you want to learn more about. So as you learn more, you ask more questions and you kind of get fired up about certain sections, and it's okay to kind of follow that, and say yes to those opportunities that come up. No, you don't have to do every single thing, but I think being a little timid or hesitant about trying something new, I think you might be at a disadvantage if you kind of fall for that. So saying yes to new opportunities and being okay with kind of changing and refining what you thought you wanted to be. Because I also think about it, I didn't even know there was such a thing as a BCBA. I didn't know there were people who just were researchers. I didn't know these things when I was first starting, but as I went through and learned more about the field, I was able to kind of change what I wanted to be.
That's awesome. So I'm hearing, just kind of trust when something excites you that you didn't know about and it kind of speaks to you, follow that and see where
Yep.
it might lead you.
Yeah, learn a little
So,
more about it. I tell my kids, like, I'm still a teacher. I'm just a teacher of teachers now. Like, that's how I explain it to my kids, but it's it's still in that realm of helping.
yeah, yeah. Skills that you'll always use, just in different ways.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. What do you see for yourself in the future in terms of your career? What do you think are some future steps for you?
I hope I'm still helping people, individuals with disabilities. I hope I'm still helping their families. Um, I, I run the baseball challenge league and the hockey challenge camp, and these are inclusive sports in our community that we didn't have a ton of these opportunities. And I said, this needs to happen. So with some awesome collaborators, we made it happen. And I just kind of see it as mixing my love of sports, mixing my love of like inclusivity and involving individuals with disabilities and their families in the community. Just kind of combining those two in a kind of research way. Because we actually wrote an article on this. We developed the program, we evaluated the program because I'm kind of a nerd. So I wanted to make sure it actually worked, and it really did. So that's currently in progress, or in press right now. So we're hoping that, things like that kind of, I don't know, ignite others to do the same thing. Like, you can tie in all of your loves and try to do something better in your community. So I hope I'm always just doing something like that.
That's awesome because then it's like not segmented where you have your home life and work life and your interests outside of the family and it's all kind of intertwined, it sounds like.
Yep. Yep.
And you even insert your nerdiness into it
I sure
wherever you can.
do.
That's awesome. So my last question is it okay if students contact you if they want to learn more about um, what it takes to become a BCBA and what might be some next steps and other kinds of questions?
Yeah, of course. I'm always here to help. I had great advisors. I had great people who gave me information and shared their experiences. So if I can help, and especially if you want to be a good BCBA and really help folks, I would love to help you on your way.
That's awesome. Thank you. I know you sent your contact information when you sent me your bio, so I'll put that in the description of this episode on YouTube so students
Sure.
can see that. They can reread your bio and see your contact information.
Great.
Yeah, good. So that is it for my questions. It's been fun having you on the podcast today. Thank you
Thanks.
for taking the time to spend time talking about your career journey with me and for the benefit of our students. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks so much, Lori.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining today's episode of the HDFS Career Podcast. I hope you enjoyed meeting Dr. Dunkel-Jackson and her awesome information that she's had about her career journey. As we talked about in the episode, if you have any questions at all for her about what it takes to become a BCBA or what it takes to become a researcher in that area or project director, if you have questions about the research labs that she works in, feel free to contact her. Her contact information will be in the description of the episode. Please join me again soon for interviews with more professionals to learn about the many options that you have available to you as an HDFS major. Enjoy the rest of your day.